Here's a place where all of us can be safe. Our stories of transformation can be safe, and all the things we want to research are safe here. This is Safe Space with Cheyenne. I'm really excited you're here, and I hope you stick around for a while, because I've got a lot to show you before I leave Earth. I love you guys. Welcome back to your safe space. Today, my friends, I have Jorge Gonzalez with me. He is the best-selling author of the book called Answer the Call. And when you say, what is the call? Well, we're all going to get into that later. But this is a man of many hats, many experiences, and many transformations. So I want to welcome you in and say thank you so much for joining us, because you are going to educate us on one of my favorite grounded topics, which would be, what am I going to do in the world while I'm here, and what am I going to leave for my family when I go? So, hello, Jorge. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today with you.
I am too. Like I told you before we started recording, I got to start a little bit of your book. For those of you that haven't got the book yet, don't worry, you can click the link below and find your copy. But just to give you a sweet little preview, he lets you know his intention immediately and is completely transparent with his background of how he came on to these realizations and wanted to help people. But he also starts with a really sweet backstory of observing the love and commitment and the sacrifice that his grandpa made for his family and for the United States while he was growing up. So do you want to get into that a little bit with us?
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. Yeah, definitely. When I first wrote the book, I knew that the foundation of my book had to be the story of my grandfather, because that is also the foundation of my life and anything that I'm working on. So basically, my grandfather had this, he made this sacrifice back in World War II when the Americans were fighting in the war, that the United States and Mexico actually created a work agreement. They called it the Bracero program. And so basically, Mexican immigrants came over to the United States under this program. And my grandfather was newly married to my grandmother. So they had one child and one recently born child. So they had two children. And my grandfather's decision to come to the United States to send money back home, when I first heard that story, it made me emotional, it made me humble, and it made me understand that my grandfather had done a sacrifice for me even before I was even born, because my mom wasn't even born then at that particular time either. So I don't think he understood the sacrifice that he was doing was not just for himself and his two kids, but also for the children that he hadn't had yet, and definitely for his grandkids, because I am the first born generation here for Mexican immigrants. So it's like I said, it's humbling, and every time I talk about it, it just warms my heart, knowing that my grandfather did this for me, and even my daughter, because now I have a daughter now, and the sacrifice that my grandma did as well, because that must have been a huge sacrifice for her too. You know, having to be at home in Mexico, across, of course, a different country, and having to take care of two small children, and just depend on the money that my grandfather was sending. So that in itself was also a huge sacrifice. So every time I had the opportunity, I would say thank you when I first learned it. And I was always, love on my grandmother, hug her, and tell her how amazing she was, because she was just a gentle soul. She was just amazing. So that's why I wanted to make sure that story was shared, and hopefully it inspired other people to also find out, where does their lineage come from? What sacrifice their parents made and their grandparents made that they could hold on to and use that as a foundation for their life.
That's so beautiful. So being a first generation, did you feel like a massive amount of pressure to succeed in whatever facet that you chose to succeed in?
At first, I didn't, because I didn't understand it until I was older, because my family didn't speak English, so we were all Spanish speaking. And I struggled with the English language my first 3-4 years into school. So up into 3rd, 4th grade. So at that moment, I didn't know I was a first generation American. I just thought I was Mexican, just like my family, my grandparents and my parents. But as I got older, I realized, wait a minute, I'm a first generation here. No wonder has been a little difficult for me, because I'm trying to speak a language that my family doesn't speak. And and I was standing in the middle of two cultures, an American culture and a Mexican culture. So that in itself was a little tough at times. But then when I really grasped the opportunity that I was given being an American citizen, and the doors that could open for me, I was like, oh my God, this is a responsibility. I have to make sure that any decisions that I make sure that I have my parents and my grandparents' sacrifice in mind every time I make a decision. Whether it's an opportunity that shows up that I don't take, and make sure that I take, calculated risks, because I am given an opportunity. So that's when it really started to sink. I was like, oh my God, I do have a responsibility here. I have a responsibility to really build on the legacy that my grandfather started to build for us, not knowingly. And I'm going to use his story and his sacrifice and my grandmother's sacrifice as the foundation of anything I'm going to be building going forward.
That's so beautiful. Okay, let's get into how this story evolves. So you definitely had a completely different career path where you were divinely intervened, is what I would call it, right?
Yeah, definitely. My first shock to my system, where I realized, like, okay, this is him working through me here, I've always believed that I was special. I've always believed that I had a gift. And I always believed, I had this knowing that I was going to create something big that was going to change the world. I always believed that. But it wasn't when I was unemployed after the 2008-2009 crash that I was laid off of my job, a management job that I had in distribution, logistics, and warehouse management, where I had the opportunity to coach my daughter's softball team. And the reason that came up was because my daughter was like the smallest little girl there. Her and 8-9 little other girls didn't get picked for the team. And I told one of the parents, I go, look, I understand you were a coach before. I will commit myself to be your assistant if you commit yourself to be the coach, because clearly your daughter's not going to play either. And he agreed. So my daughter became part of a new team that we created. And out of that frustration of really getting my daughter up to speed, I wake up one morning at 3:00 in the morning, and I get this image in my mind of this machine. So I sketched it out, and then I went back to sleep. I woke up in the morning, and that sketch was right there. And I took my daughter to school. I was nervous all day. She came home, and she saw me kind of doodling with the sketch. She's like, "Daddy, what is that?" Well, it's a machine that I came up with to help you with your batting swing and whatnot. So, Daddy, shouldn't it do this? Shouldn't it have this? And why? How come it's not able to do this? So I redesigned it, and that's what the final prototype was. And then I built a prototype, and my daughter became a 5-time All-Star, 1-year Rookie of the Year, and 1-year MVP because of this batting machine. And then she transitioned into from slow pitch to fast pitch in high school, her freshman and sophomore year, JV. And I was like, whoa. So that was when I knew that this was God's gift to us to help my daughter get her skills up, and to history not to repeat itself. Because when I was 12, 13 years old, I wasn't picked for the local baseball team. And that pushed me into the neighborhood, riding my bike, hanging out with my friends and whatnot. Not that I was a bad kid, but I did some stuff that I probably shouldn't have done in the neighborhood. So I didn't want history to repeat itself. So I committed myself to having my daughter play. And when that machine came out, I was like, oh my God. It was just like, but I always knew that was God's gift to us. I always knew that.
You felt like it was just a cycle broken, and you had the awareness to break it?
Yes. I believe that the decision that I made was for history not to repeat itself. And then when he gave me that gift, I knew that it was for us to submerge, to really dive deep in her softball adventure, and me be really committed to it. and build this machine so we can have something anchored, and so she could become like this amazing player. Because the first year nobody wanted her. The second year and third year is like, oh my God, George, what are you doing with her? Like everybody wanted her on their team. They wanted her to leave her team and go to their team. And my daughter said, no, I'm committed to this team until I'm done with the league. And she stood there. So she also helped a lot of these little girls go up in their skills as well, because they were so motivated by her.
Oh, that's so sweet. And so integritous to stay with the team that, you grew with and made. That's amazing.
Yeah, that she stuck with it. Yeah.
That's amazing. So how did you get into to being a realtor? Because you had to take like a complete 180 in your life, right? You had to go from this is the trajectory that I think my life is, and then you had to go reinvent yourself through realty and a couple other things, right?
Yeah. So basically, when I became unemployed, that's when the batting machine came, and that's when I was a coach for my daughter. I was employed for about 3 years after the crash, because everything was like, the economy was completely destroyed. Then I went back to work, and going back to work, I landed a career job that took me 20 years and many, many, many attempts to get in. And sadly, it's funny now, because I was looking at the window one day and I was thinking, God, you gave me this machine. I thought I was going to change the world with this machine, and here I am stuck in these walls again. I thought my life was going to be different. And 2 weeks after that somewhat conversation, I have an accident. In that accident, herniated one of my lower L5 discs, one disc in the middle of my spine, and one in my neck. And that disabled me for 3.5 years. I couldn't even lift a gallon of milk. And I say this lightly and humbly, but be careful what you ask for. Mm-hmm. Because that incident disabled me for 3.5 years. And then I fell into depression. I had suicidal thoughts because I was so heavily medicated. I went into this really, really dark place, but I think I was supposed to go into that dark place to really refine myself. And because all I could think, I was like, no. God wants something more for me. He doesn't want me to stay stuck here. I know he's got a plan. And I did say to pull me out of that work environment. I did ask for that. I may not agree how it happened, but I'm sure going forward, there's going to be a logical reason for this. It doesn't make sense now. And then they released me from my workers' comp case. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I can't even lift 5 pounds. And then I heard this whisper, real estate. And I was like, real estate? Okay. I'm not new to real estate here. I was involved in real estate when I was 14 years old, doing kitchen and bathroom remodels and rehabs with my dad and my uncle. So transitioning to real estate wasn't really far-fetched, because I had relatable experience on the flipping side and the investing side. So when I made the decision, I passed my test on my first attempt, and then I closed 12 deals my first 16 months. So I was successful my first year in real estate, because I already had that experience, relatable experience when I was very young. So that's how I was able to transition into that, bringing in my relatable experience and listening to that whisper, because he was guiding me, because he knew that I couldn't physically do the kind of work that I had done before. So that's how he guided me, and he directed me, and he reinvented me into this new career, which is real estate.
That's obviously got to take a lot of courage and humility in your situation. When you talk about going into that dark aspect, or even I can identify so much with that feeling of, oh, I have a plan, I understand, yes, I'm going to follow this. And it's almost like you put your blinders on to the plan, right? Because you want to focus. Mm-hmm. And then when that falls apart in front of your face, your only option is honestly to fall into a pit of depression. And if you have pharmaceuticals in your system on top of it, of course, it's an altered state of consciousness. Mm-hmm. Everybody, that's a supremely relatable story, especially the ideation that comes with it, because it's almost like you're like calling out to God. Like that's that's your time in the desert, right? Where you're going out and you're like, hello? Anybody up there? Thought we had a plan going. What's going on? You know, so I love the way that you described it, because it reminded me of something that I went through when I was having that communion with that voice in my head. And it was my original podcast that I did. We had been scripting it and, you know, getting boards and chords figured out and recording times and guests and everything lined up. And it was the week that we were supposed to record. And I just remember getting up and being like, oh, I've been waiting my whole life to feel this drive and this passion again for a project. You know, instead of going and building somebody else's dream, I was finally going to build mine, and I was really going to dedicate myself to it. So like that, I think that day, I had a really small child. So at that time I got me time in between her naps, and I would do yoga as much as I could in between to just like acclimate my nervous system or just keep me kind of centered. And I got a little cocky one day, and I was like, oh, I have to wake her up in 10 minutes, but I have 10 minutes where I can do a couple poses and just get myself realigned and then, you know, back into motherhood. Well, I was in jeans, so not a smart idea to start really trying to feel into your body when your legs are restricted. And I used to be able to bend back, like, I don't even know what it's called, but basically you can bend your legs and bend your back all the way to the ground, right?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So I was just going in a flow state, and I was bending and I was bending and I was bending. And usually if I would have been in obviously pants that supported my practice, I would have went just fine. I didn't stretch my knee out enough. And when I went back, I heard the loudest pop in my knee I've ever heard come out of my body in my whole life. And I immediately knew that I had done something, but I had no idea like what it was. So I just like put my hands on my legs, and I was like healing, like, heal me, myself. I'm so sorry. My bad. So long story long, it ended up being that I kind of tore my meniscus is what ended up happening. I wound up at the ER the next day. I don't know how to be an injured person. I know that there are people that know how to go to hospitals, know how to deal with physicians, know how to go through the whole system of Western medicine. It's a horror movie in my mind. Even going up and dragging my leg into an ER in a COVID-centered facility was a nightmare for me, to the point where when I went up, the lady asked if I had called ahead to come to the emergency room. And I was so upset. I said, I had no idea I had to call ahead that I had an emergency. I go, did you see me walk in? I drug my leg in here. I think that constitutes an emergency. And then she wanted to reiterate that it's COVID and blah, 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 blah. And I said, I get that. But if I have to walk out to the parking lot and call you to tell you and drag my leg back in, I was like, I'm going to feel really freaking stupid for having to abide by this. I just want you to know. Obviously, I'm not in a good place right now. I just drug my leg in here that won't bend back. I'm a little upset, you know, and I'm trying not to disrespect you, but you're giving me oxymoron rules and I can't take it. My brain is frying. And again, I'm completely out of my element and I'm terrified. So I go do the ER thing, get the very expensive knee brace that I pray to God insurance is going to help me out with. And I'm like, okay, looking up at the sky, like, ain't nothing going to break my stride, right? I'm going to still get behind that microphone. I'm still going to air my first episode and do my first interview. So the next day I go to work. We're 2 days away from recording. I'm on my way to work and I'm trying to keep myself positive because I feel myself slipping into that depth that I am so used to being in when things don't go my way, right? And I'm sitting at a stoplight a block away from work and I was like, hey, I really trust the vision in my head. I'm really trying to stay above water. I can feel the darkness want to take over me, the pessimistic, the jadedness, the WTF is going on. I feel it coming after me, and I do not want to give into this. I just want you to know I do believe like there's a plan. I see the vision inside of myself. I'm just really hanging on by a thread right now, right? And as soon as I say that, I look up and a car hits me going 35 miles per hour while I am stopped at a stoplight and shoves me into the intersection. The knee that I had to drive on was on the brake, and it retwisted my meniscus in the knee brace. So it re-injured me after I had already been through the Western medicine thing. I always hear voices in my head anyways, so I'm used to it, and I'm used to getting an intuitive voice letting me know how to talk with other people, basically. And I get out of my car, and I look back, and it's a young woman with her kid, and, I immediately just want to be like, ah! Why did you do that? Were you on your phone? What do you mean? I'm stopped. And it, just this voice came over and was like, and it said, hey, she's having a really tough time right now. I know you are, but she is too. So just give her some grace. So I leaned back and I said, can I trust you to pull over to this parking lot and, change information? And she was shaking and she was like, yes, of course. Her kid's in the car, so definitely I had sympathy. And I pull over. I'm as nice as I possibly can be. I'm speaking very direct, right? Because I need the proper information for the police report and insurance and all of that. And she looks at me and she goes, why are you being so nice to me? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe God wants us to have margaritas after all this shit's over with. I really don't know. I just know that being mean to you and treating you horrible is not the way that I want to live my life. And this is an accident. I'm like, but it's not an accident that I really wanted to partake in. I feel it more of a lesson. I feel like I'm supposed to slow down in some facet of my life. And I'm really trying not to slip in the depths of hell of depression, because last week I was on my path and I knew my way. And this week I am in another form of medical debt that I cannot afford. And I am probably a part of the Western medicine system, which I don't want to be a part of either. So I end up checking on her and making sure she's okay. And she's still bewildered with the fact that the woman she hit was checking on her to make sure she was okay. Ultimately, of course, I did get to go record. I got to go do physical therapy with my chiropractor. One of my best friends is a doctor, and I called him immediately after seeing another doctor, and he's like, whatever you do, just don't operate on it. He's like, I know if you go to a doctor, they're going to tell you, we're going to have to just take this out. And he's like, your meniscus can heal itself. He's like, you love holistic health. He's like, so dig deeper into what you already know and go get, the other help that you need. So I went to an energy practitioner. That was my friend. I went to my chiropractor. I dove into yoga and aromatherapy. And over time, I was able to heal my meniscus fully with the help of a mix of Western medicine and holistic medicine, and I didn't have to go through the surgery or anything. But I can understand when you're having that voice where you're like, I have a mission. Why is this bad stuff happening to me? And in retrospect, I realized they were like, I know you're ready to go, but there's still a couple things we're working on in the background that you can't see. So we're going to need you to slow down, because we don't want you to hurt yourself in another facet or put yourself out there too soon. It really always comes down to divine timing for me. And it's my ego that's like, I'm ready to go. Put me in, coach, put me in. So I love that you were able to break that down, because it's such a relatable thing when we find that drive and find that passion and, yes, that's what I'm doing. This is how I will honor my family. This is how I will honor myself on my time on earth. It's completely discouraging. But the difference is you didn't give up. You dug deeper, and you dug deeper into the faith that you have and the love and the knowing that you actually have, which ended up catapulting you out of that, hell that you could have actually created for yourself in that time.
I love your story.
Thank you.
I also refuse to get surgery on my back or my neck. I did as much natural, and I continue to do it on my own versus getting any kind of surgeries whatsoever.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to cut me. I don't want anybody to cut me.
I feel the same way.
I need to let my body heal itself with whatever exercises I give it and strengthen it. Because I believe that our bodies are meant to heal themselves if you give it the proper nutrition, the proper rest, and the proper things to do.
I feel the exact same way.
Yep.
That's so wonderful. Okay, so let's continue on this story. So reality comes in, the transformation's in play. Now you are, I mean, the book's coming into play, and like, tell me about answering the call and what that means to you and what this book is teaching others, because I'm really excited to dig into the generational wealth aspect of it, but I don't want to skip over anything.
So basically, when at the middle of the pandemic in 2021, early part of 2021, I got this feeling over me. It wasn't a voice this time. There's more like this feeling like it's time to write the book. And I was like, it shocked me because I'm like, wait a minute, we're in the middle of a pandemic. That doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. And then it just came over me, and it almost like it hugged me, and I was like, no, we're gonna write the book now. And I was really, but the feeling that came over me was like, it's almost like I was being told in this beautiful energy and hug, no, it's going to be okay. Now is the time to write the book. Because I knew that, because of course all the media that we were seeing, that a lot of people were going into depression states, and people were getting medicated, people getting divorced and this and that, because everybody was inside four walls. So it was depressing. Mm-hmm. And I also felt that the stories and I knew that the motivating and inspiring stories. So I listened to that, and I went through the process, and we wrote the book. And right when I was going to finalize the title, that day I was on the phone with my publishing company, I heard this whisper. And this was the second time I heard this whisper, and I knew whose voice that was again. And it said, answer the call. And then it got my attention because I was on the phone. And then I hear it a second time, answer the call. And then I repeated it myself. I said it out loud, answer the call. And my publishing company says, what is that? And that's the name of the book. Because like, where did you get that from? It was just whispered to me right now. Okay, great. We're scrapping American Inventor, and we're calling it Answer the Call. This is the title. And that's what we went for. 2 weeks later, the meaning of Answer the Call came to me. That answer the call is about finding your gifts, your talents, and pursuing your life purpose. That is what answer the call means. And that's the message that he gave me. And he wanted to make sure that that's what my book was called. Because digging deep into the stories that are in my book, it's about gifts, it's about talents, and it's about finding your life's purpose. Even my grandfather used everything that he knew, everything that he was raised with, and he made a decision to come here. That was his purpose. His purpose was to come here and seed his grandchildren in the U.S. to make them U.S. citizens, to open opportunities for them, for us. So that's why when I think about that, every time I think about it, my grandfather did that for us. That was his purpose. And then he also made sure that our family values were intact. That was his gift. He was giving that to us. So he gave us himself and his gifts and everything else. He gave that to us. So when I talk about life purpose, and a gift and a talent, it's going to be different for everybody. And a purpose is going to be different for everybody. But the day I finished the book, I was given also access to look back into my life up all the way to my childhood. And I was able to connect certain pieces, things that I didn't remember, things that I never even knew that I experienced, but I was given access to connect the dots. And then that's when I knew my life purpose is to motivate and inspire the next generation to follow their gifts, their talents, and pursue their life's purpose. And then also anyone that seems lost, that needs to reinvent themselves, because I've done that several times, and be able to motivate and inspire them. So that's my purpose now.
That's so beautiful. You have such a great story.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for saying that. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. And it really is, I mean, truly relatable for whoever it is, whatever your background is. I think there's so much relatability in your story, and there's a lot of faith in your story, which is one of my favorite things about when I met you. I love that you said you're on another show and you're like, there's the light and there's the dark. You know, which one? Which one?
What side are you on?
Yeah, which side are you on? Which I get like dualistic You know, everything that we've been taught is about duality. I guess I'm just a big believer in union and unconditional love. I think that's why I enjoy like diving through people's stories and seeing the resilience that they have and all the things that they do. But even like all of the knowledge that you have acquired, and then like you said, you got access to like past memories. It's amazing how capable you were of putting all those together and utilizing them. You didn't look at it and go, oh, this is in the past, like that's gone. You were able to take all of that and even understand your grandfather's foresight that he had for your future. And I think that you were gifted that foresight, and that's why you were able to obviously maneuver through all of these pitfalls. You know, the new levels, new devils is what I think when you level up like that. But it's just such like a very powerful and intriguing story.
No, thank you. I almost didn't publish the book because I've always wanted to pass it down to my children, to my grandchildren and whatnot, because I wanted them to know my grandfather and his sacrifice. I want my lineage to know that. And I also want my lineage to understand the journey of my father as well, too, with alcoholism and how he passed away so soon in his life. Mm-hmm. I wanted my lineage to know that. So if they ever fell out of line, they can get back in line by knowing the sacrifices and the consequences of certain actions, you know? And, but my publishing company, the gentleman that I was working with, he says, George, I understand that you want to shelf it and just save it for your family. I completely get that, and that's honorable. But these stories that are in this book, and the way you talk about your grandfather, you talk about your dad's story, and the way you talk about your daughter in your book, these are stories that really could be motivating and inspiring for other people. Just think about how many lives you can help change and redirect by these stories. Mm-hmm. And when he said that, I'm like, because I was getting like imposter syndrome almost.
Absolutely. Going like to big ideas, right?
Yeah, I thought that, you know, it was sufficient just to pass it down to my lineage. I thought that was sufficient. But when he said that, I'm like, okay, well, that started peeling away the layers of the imposter syndrome that I was kind of dealing with. And when we launched it, and he told me that it went live, I bought the first one because I wanted to have the first printed copy of Amazon, right? The first paperback. But then it went bestseller in 24 hours. Because one of my clients asked me, George, what does that little number one mean? He's like, number one? What do you mean? It's like, yeah, on Amazon it says little one. It has a one on it. Well, I don't know. Let me see. And then I saw it. I'm like, that says it's the number one bestseller. That's what that means. I just got emotional. It humbled me. Mm-hmm. You know, that little old me that was getting this imposter syndrome, and again, first generation American and whatnot. Oh my God, I not only did I publish a book, but it became a bestseller in 24 hours. And then I find out that it became a bestseller in 5 countries: the US, Europe, Canada, Mexico. So my grandfather's story made its way back to Mexico. And I was like, wow.
That's some full circle right there.
And I told my mom, my book just became a bestseller in Mexico. She's like, what? Yeah. My grandfather's story went back home. And I was like tear-eyed with my mom, because it was so emotional for me that I know my grandfather's proud that I shared his story, and I'm accomplishing the things that I'm accomplishing, because he always believed in me. He always told me that I was going to do something great. He didn't tell me what it was, but he always believed in me. I didn't know what that meant. And now when all this is happening, I'm like, now I know what he meant. Could he have known something, but not really know how to explain it? I want to hold on to that and say, yes, probably. Just like I know that my daughter is a special child and she's going to create something special. And I know that. I have this knowing about it. I want to believe that my grandfather knew that about me, and my father as well too. I want to hold on to that. You know.
I love it. So what are you doing today? How do people get a hold of you? Where do they see you?
So today I'm just working on the things that I'm most passionate about, which is the book, going on stages, colleges, universities, and trying to get into now schools, now high schools, and motivate, inspire the next generation. I give away a free download of my book. There's 3 options to get the book. One is a free option download, and then there's an online version, and then there's a paperback version. But I'm always promoting the free version because I don't want to get. I'm not going to get rich off my book, but I do know that I'm meant to put this message in front of as many people as I possibly can, and because that's what God's giving me. That's what He's asking of me to do that for Him. His message, not my message. It's His message. The stories, I put Him down because those are my experiences, and He carried me through those experiences. But the message itself of Answer the Call, that is His message to the world. And I'm being called to help put that in front of other people, as many people as I possibly can. So I'm working on the book and showing that and motivating and inspiring the next generation. And also my real estate, helping, families create generational wealth by investing in real estate, because real estate is really where you grow the money, the safest way, the long way, in the long game. So, and then I also talk about how to protect that asset, because if you have it in your name, it becomes a liability. You have to remove it out of your name and put it into a trust, and that's really how you protect that. So I try to teach people and coach people, mentor people how to write a book, share their stories that they're passionate about, buy real estate, and then also protect the real estate. And also, if anybody has questions about how to create an invention or a project or whatnot, and how to facilitate those ideas so they can put them out there in the marketplace.
That's amazing. Like I said, you've taken everything you've learned and figured out how to give it back to the world. He made it a part of me. And I do believe that anything that He gives me, that He allows me access to, I'm supposed to share. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that, because even there's a lot of times that I write like quotes. He gives me poetry, and then I'll cut them down in like 3 or 4 different segments, mm-hmm. and then I'll try to post it between videos when I get the downloads. And if I don't share that, it's lost. So if He gives it to me, it motivates me and inspires me. I have to share it so He can motivate and inspire other people, because all those words, all that poetry, that's not mine. He planted in here and He put it in my heart. So I'm supposed to share it. And I think that if a lot of us did that, we would all be in a much better place if we all did that. Mm-hmm. You're speaking to my soul so deeply right now. You're such a pure vessel. I love it.
People ask me, you said this earlier about yourself, about the young lady that crashed into you. People ask me to tell me, George, I know you've gone through so much. You should be in such a dark place with a dark heart and bitter. That's where you should be at. But yet you choose to give. Yes, you choose to be kind. And yes, you still allow your heart to be pure. How is that possible? And then I tell them that God doesn't allow my heart to be bitter nor in dark place. He needs it to be pure because of what I need to share. And the things that I need to share cannot come from a dark heart or a bitter heart. It only can come out from a pure heart, a good heart, a giving heart. And they're just like, wow. And that's not me talking, that's Him talking. Mm-hmm. He's just using me to say that.
Absolutely.
Because He puts that in my heart.
I love it. So what is your last piece of advice before we introduce the music to everybody? If you could just have a microphone that went out to 9 billion people and you're like, here's my collective advice to all of you, what would your statement be?
Life is not going to be easy. And we are going to live through some very painful experiences. And we're going to feel that those experiences are going to take us out. They're going to unalive us. What we have to understand is this, and we have to have faith that we are here for something bigger than ourselves. that if we're being attacked so hard, that is because on the other side of that has to be something so life-changing, not just for you, but for the people that you're assigned to reach. And this could be 100 people, it could be 100 million people, it could be 8 billion people. We don't know that until we cross the other side of that pain, that struggle, and that tragedy that we're dealing with in that present moment. I promise you this, that there is something much beautiful on that other side if we have the courage to not give up and have faith in ourselves and have faith that there's something bigger than us helping us and carrying us through these painful struggles. That was my message. And it's not my message. I don't take credit for that. He's giving that to me to give to the world.
Coming through you, you're a beautiful channel. I thank you so much for coming on today and educating us and telling your story, honoring your heritage, the success and, the divine intervention of everything that you've been able to honor in your path. And I really do hope you make tons and tons of money off of your book just so you can continue on with building your generational wealth and taking care of your family and other families along the way.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Yes, I think you're wonderful. And for everybody that's listening, please click that link below to get your copy of Answer the Call and reach out to George with any questions you might have on real estate, building generational wealth, or honestly, if you just need a pep talk, I think he'd be a great guy to call. All right, friends. Vitality Exposed is going to bring us, another track from Nightcap. I know I keep talking about these guys, and I'm telling you, you got to go down to Austin to go see them in person. You got to go check out their tour. Or, hey, why don't you just head over to Spotify or any other streaming platform and go download, go like, go comment on their social media. It takes all of us to help and support each other, right? So today we're going to bring one of my favorite parts of the song called From Me. So we will see you on the next episode. Don't forget to like, download, share, and come back and see us for another episode. Thank you, thank you, thank you.